Well, Nick, thank you for jumping in and joining me all the way from Belgium. You're so many friends in Europe that we said, enough's enough. We can't make everybody keep coming to New York. We've got to bring it to Europe. And so we chose London. And we're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to having you be one of the speakers during our event, November 3rd and 4th, and are excited about the things that your company, 49 Meta, are working on and what you intend to bring to London. Not everybody is familiar with you or 49 Meta, so maybe we could start by having you tell us a bit about your story and the story at your company.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I really like this setup, so thank you. Well, about me, well, I come from Web 1. So if you're talking about Web 3, I'm from Web 1. I'm that old. I'm a marketing technologist, so I followed the evolutions of the web, and I like the pace of innovation. So I was really active in Web 2 and social media evangelism, because we saw that was changing the world at that time. But now, wow, with Web 3 and everything what was coming up, especially last year and the year before, we thought, well, we have to do something in that space. That space, you just want to be in it. You want to be a little bit OG in this. So we started out with 49 Meta.
49 Meta, I was reading the connection to the gold rush of 1849. Do you want to give us some thoughts on the gold rush of Web3? Because what I've read about 49 Meta and is that you're not a huge advocate of some of the crazy approaches that people have taken to NFTs. That there seems to be a long-term perspective, doing really innovative things, like how does a musician allow their fans to co-create music with them? And these are the types of utilities and engagements that I think many want to drive toward. So maybe you could give us a bit of insight in terms of how does your organization, your team see the space? Obviously, yes, there is, in a sense, a gold rush of this wild, wild west, but also there should be a certain focus around strategy, utility, having diverse, innovative ideas. So love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, we are referring to 1849 when the gold rush started in California, and we feel that it's the same momentum. We were very early in the space. We see people rushing into it, making money, or trying to make money out of it. But when you look back in those ages, you see that most innovation came not from the gold, but from the hotels, the railroads that were being built from west to east, and from jeans. Levi Strauss came up with in that period. So we think Web3 is the same. It's we only see the surface at this moment, and we see cool projects. I know Bored Ape, CryptoPunks, all those great NFT projects, but there must be more, and there will be more. And I believe that what we want to do is try to look at things and explain people, artists, creative industry, brands, that it's not about the technology, it's about new thinking. And that's why we want all projects to be Wagami, and not just the word for flipping NFTs. We want to be more than that.
Can you share a bit about your thoughts on musicians and diverse and innovative ways by which musicians can approach NFTs? Because I think the project that 49 Meta has been working on, where musician allows the fans to basically co-create these NFTs and co-create their next records with them, is a fascinating concept, right? People are talking all sorts of things, like you could have royalties, give royalties to your fans, right? And they can make money by buying your NFT and flipping it. So but this is interesting. This is, well, what if you allow your fans to come in and actually create with you? I'd love to hear some of the thoughts, and how did you get here, and what have you seen kind of develop and mature as your team and the musician, and his team has been working on this together.
Yeah, look, I really like the music scene. We saw a lot of cool things happening in sports industry, what NBA was doing and is doing now with the dynamic NFTs and those kind of things, fascinating things. And music, of course, Blau did a real good job in starting out with album NFT, sharing royalties. That's what it's all about, sharing with your fans and building upon it. And launched Royal, great platform to launch artists in the right way, in the Web3 way. Well, we thought that there should be next level in this as well, in music, maybe in other industries as well. And we were talking with a DJ, Bushimi, and he's a great artist, a great producer, played all around the world. And we talked about how can we engage fans even more than just buying albums, coming to concerts. And we came up to going up with the idea of co-creating an album, how we do this. And that's why we thought about, well, maybe we should look at that. And then we created the Bushimi Beats project.
When you look at Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3, I'm also old. I started building websites in the 1990s. I think my first website I ever sold was $316,000. I thought to myself, I found the industry I want to work in.
Yeah.
Certain things from Web 1 and Web 2, I really enjoyed. And certain things I found very disappointing. Web 3 is so new, it's hard to really say, this is the best and this is the struggle. But when you look back, as I do, at Web 1 and Web 2, what are some things that you think some of the younger people in the industry that are doing NFT projects that they should be thoughtful of? Like, hey, don't forget, history has a tendency to repeat itself. And in Web 1, these were some really wonderful things that were going in our favor that we can take advantage of in Web 3. And also in Web 2, like, these are some struggles we need to be mindful of. I'd love to have you share a bit about your perspective looking back and then seeing, well, this is what we can learn from what's happened in the past.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation and great question. I think that Web 1 and certainly the beginning of the years, the early 90s, before the bubble, what we saw is technology and culture colliding. And that's what we see again in Web 3. It's not all about just the technology, is what you can do with it. And there was a lot of open source. There was Discord, is more IRC-like in Web 1 than social media platforms are now. It's about collaboration, it's about feedback, it's about building things together. So I see a lot of those things. So I think Web 1 was, well, it's odd. Web 2 is centralized, no code tools, social media companies ruling the world to say what can be done and not can be done. And what we see is that the last couple of years, there was a sort of punk anarchy movement of people saying, no, I think the world should be more decentralized. I think we want to be part of it. We want to be stakeholder of projects. And that's what's happening now in Web3. But we tend indeed to go, again, central. Most of the Web3 organizations are central. They try to do it decentralized way, but it's still central. And it's okay. I think that balances out. I think don't try to do things only decentralized way. Democracy doesn't work all the time as well. So it's okay to have a mix. I don't think you have to go really one end and do things decentralized. Centralized can be okay as well, but let's keep engaging people into projects and not try to do it on your own. And don't think about what the money is. It's about doing your first thing, then the second one, and then the third, and then the fourth. It's like startups. It will be better over time. So just go with it and start to experiment.
One of the things that you and I talked about before we started our fireside chat is planning only goes so far, ideas and strategies and goals, and it only goes so far. At some point, you have to actually do something. You have to actually go to market. And so would love to have you share a bit about that, and maybe specifically what it is that you and your team are bringing to market at NFT.London, because it's one of the things that you're bringing to the community. And so this would be a good chance for you to tell all of us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, that's what we really want to present to the community into the space is our Genesis project, because you can talk about things and you can think about strategies, and we're good at strategies, I think, and creative concept, those kind of things. But you have to build things to really get into the space and into the rabbit hole and feel it. And I think this is the ideal project to do so. And we want to show the world that by co-creating, you can be really part of a brand or a DJ, some kind of things. So what we're trying to do is, what we are doing and building at the moment, is we look at the DJ and all his tracks, and we fractionalized actually some sort of all those tracks, and we made 3,000 NFT samples, some bass, some drum, strings, vocals. And you can buy the individual NFT very cheap. But then we invite people to go to a website composer and start playing with those NFTs and start mixing their own track. And that's thing. I think that's kind of new at the moment in the space. And what we want to do in roadmap is to see when people are mixing and making those great compositions out of his tracks or his beats, that they can then publish a mix, and the DJ will select 5 of them afterwards and make a new album about it. So his album will be based on all the mixes that people are making. So on his album, those NFT holders will be the featuring artists. So this project is, I think it's WAGMI. It's all about how can we do it together, how can we build it together and profit from it together as well. Because if the album goes berserks, well, everything's profitable. Of course, we want to share the royalties as well, looking in that space as well.
Before we wrap, I also wanted to ask about the Web3 environment in Europe and specifically in Belgium. Many of the folks that might watch this video are in America, right? They are part of our NFT NYC event, or maybe now they're going to be involved because we're bringing it to London. But not many people in the community are necessarily aware of, like, what's the NFT Web3 blockchain ecosystem like in Europe, and specifically Belgium, where you're at. Would you like to share a bit about that before we wrap?
Well, mostly in Belgium or in Europe, we tend to be late to the game. We saw it in Web 1 and Web 2. But now I feel there are so many people talking about it and trying to figure out what it's about, and brands and corporates asking us from, okay, we see this thing happening. What should we do about it? So the questions come very early again. We know that there's not mass adoption yet. We're still early in the space, early adopters. Even in the US, it's the 90s of the internet, for example, and that's okay. But what we see is that people are starting questions very early already, and that's a good thing, because then you can create a community, build a community, a creative community on doing things. We have great artists like Musketon, like Vex. Vex already did project in New York as well. You know, digital artists finally getting rewarded for the digital artwork that they make, because before NFTs, before Web3, they had to print a digital work to be able to sell this work, which is ridiculous. And now they can make an earnest living out of it, and they're already doing it. So I think Belgium is doing great. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I asked. I'm intrigued myself. How are different communities dealing with these things? So we're really looking forward to having you come speak at NFT.London. We're grateful that you and your team, as well as other teams, have seen our gathering as a place to bring new projects to. And so we're looking forward to seeing the success of that 49 Meta project. For anybody that's watching our conversation right now, or that sees it in the future, thank you for your attention. We would encourage you to come join us at NFT.London, November 3rd and 4th. I'll be back again with another Fireside Chat very soon.
Thank you.